G'day everyone. Welcome to our next session on analysing Crow Song by Margaret Atwood. So we've done our first reading and we've done our Big Five analysis. Our next step is to get into our Critical Discourse Analysis, or CDA for short. And so here's my sheet that I downloaded from InThinking, and we can go through each of the critical discourse analysis questions here. So let's start off with framing, which is all about the perspective of the author. And so this is essentially the context. And we already uncovered that in our first reading and our Big Five analysis. So we've got the idea of political protest of the 1970s with the Cold War in full swing. There's the proxy wars, such as the Vietnamese War, that's being fought or just wrapping up being fought. There's also the threat of nuclear war. There's also environmental concerns increasing, and we're looking at a university education level for the audience here. So let's move on to foregrounding. So what is made important? What's put at the front of this poem? And this starts to get at the message and the main theme. So I think we've got the failure of society, and it takes a very accusatory tone, which is done through the second person point of view in the middle stanzas. And also we've got a lot of use of imagery, such as arid sun and austere black uniform. The crow is also foregrounded, which is interesting because the crow is the speaker, but is also a common symbol of death and evil or decay. Now, what's backgrounded? This was an interesting question because we often get caught up in what's there in the poem, and figuring out what's not in the poem can be illuminating also. And what's definitely missing is any positive aspects of society. So any achievements that human societies have made are not included there at all. And so we've got things such as the moon landings, space exploration was really significant in the 60s and 70s, and also economic wealth. There are lots of economic there was lots of economic progress in the 60s and the 70s as well, and all that is washed out, as well as medical care too. Moving on to the audience. So again, this connects to our first reading and our Big Five, so we've probably answered this one already. University level educated North Americans with an interest in social protest, and I included literature there since it's Margaret Atwood. Her audience is likely people interested in literature. Also, her poetry is very non-standard, and so that means her audience is going to be quite specific here. And the audience is likely to share the author's perspective on this. So this is the relation to the author and the subject of the text. So it's probably a friendly audience or a receptive audience. So topicalization, what's put at the front of the sentence to show what it's about. And so at the start of the lines, the most common words are I and you. So I referring to the speaker of the poem, which is the crow, and you, which is human societies. And this really reflects the speaker's disappointment and accusations that are being made. And now this is where it gets a little bit interesting, and we can start making connections with stylistic devices. Because of the enjambment that's used in the poem, the last words are also given importance. So remember, enjambment is when a sentence is split over multiple lines, and the author is making a choice on where to break those sentences, especially in free verse poetry. And so the last words often are given importance. And what I noticed with a lot of the words, they have negative connotations. So the example I had here was squabble in line 3, which reinforces the bitter mood of the poem. So you can see we're making connections between these things such as topicalization and other important literary concepts such as mood. Now, the last part here, agent-patient relations. I also found this question illuminating and helped me understand the poem in a little bit more detailed. I observed that the crow is given a godlike status through phrases such as "my people." But, and this is the key insight, agency is taken away from the crow and given to society by the use of active voice. And the example I have here is, "You have too many wars." So the interesting implication for this poem is that even though the crow has status, the crow is made a patient through lines such as "you ignore me," which has the effect of really heightening the tragedy of society's failure and really laying the blame at humankind's feet for the tragedies that are happening and the failure that the crow sees. So that would make a really nice concluding insight for an essay or for an oral commentary. It would also make a very nice thesis statement as well that you could then go ahead and unpack in an essay or oral commentary. So that is how we use critical discourse analysis to help uncover a little bit more insight into a text that we're examining. All right, thanks very much, everyone.